Hi there everybody, it's Yo-Yo Me, and today we're going to watch the death of CLG through picks and bans. Now CLG, to start, bans Ashe against the Ku Tigers. Prey is extremely potent on the Ashe with his ultimates. His ultimates are pretty much impeccable. Ku Tigers then bans Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser's a standard ban right now. CLG bans Kennen. They're afraid of the flex pick. Smeb can run Kennen, and so can Gorilla. They've run a Callista Kennen bot lane to great effect. The ban from Ku Tigers is Gangplank. The Gangplank ban is, of course, a really strong ban right now. CLG's definitely more focused on specific bans, while Ku Tigers is focused on general bans. CLG bans Callista last. Callista's a very strong pick. Just in general, provides CC from the AD role, is a challenge to lock down. Fits into the Callista Kennen combo, but Kennen was also banned, so that ban may be a little questionable from CLG, unless CLG is just extremely afraid of Prey's Callista. Ku Tigers rounds out the bans with the Lulu, so Counter Logic can't flex Lulu into the top lane or the mid lane. The Lulu ban's pretty standard now. CLG picks Echo, which is actually a flex pick between three roles. Poe Belter could take it, Zion Spartan could take it, Nick Smithy could take it. Ku Tigers responds with Darius and Azir, two extremely contested picks right now. They look really happy at getting those two picks. Darius, extremely potent top laner, has an above 50% win rate so far. 57% win rate, as you can see. Then Azir has a 71% win rate in the World's Group Stage so far, so Azir is extremely strong at the moment. Just very difficult to punish. So Ku Tigers is going for power picks as opposed to a specific team comp they've already got lined up. CLG looks to be going for the Veigar here. Veigar's a very strong pick at the moment because of the buffs he received, where he gets AP from assists, and his meteor animation got cleaned up quite a bit. The delay is now less and more standardized. CLG also picks up the Tristana. Tristana's been a favorite of Doublelift because Tristana knocks down towers so quickly. It lets Doublelift split push, it lets him team fight, it lets CLG do more of a sieging style than necessarily a team fight style. Doublelift can just knock down towers with Tristana's explosive shot. Ku Tigers looks to be going for the Elise. Elise has an extremely absurd win rate right now. Not quite Azir's win rate, but she has a 60% win rate and has been picked and banned in every single game of Worlds so far. She is an extremely strong jungler. First pickable in any composition so far. The Ku Tigers rounds it out with their Jinx. Jinx is actually similar to Tristana in the fact that they both have an excessive range. However, Jinx is a better team fighter because of her rocket form, because of her traps, and because of her Super Mega Death Rocket. She has far more AoE damage than Tristana, while Tristana has far more sieging potential and turret taking potential in one burst. Ku Tigers looks to be setting up for a very team fighting oriented team with their bot lane and the mid lane, with Darius and Elise to back it up with pick potential. And CLG picks Fiora and Braum. Now, the problem here is that Fiora's a strong pick. I don't know how good it is against Darius. Seems to me that Darius would probably win that matchup with the heal he gets from his Q. However, the problem with CLG now relies around the fact that they're relying on very conditional CC for any lockdown on the Jinx. They're relying on Echo's stun, Echo's parallel convergence. They're relying on Veigar's baby cage, that's what I call it, and they're relying on Afromu getting his Winter's Bite passive onto Jinx. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the wisest thing, because Jinx and Azir both are extremely long-range hyper carries, and it's going to be very difficult to get through the Tom Kench, the Darius, and the Elise to actually land any effective CC or land anything at all on the Azir and the Jinx. Now, CLG picked a very complex composition in that if they get their abilities off correctly, they have very good zoning, they have excellent zone control in team fights, but the problem is it's just too difficult to run that type of composition into a Jinx and an Azir. Jinx and Azir are just going to outrange you, out-team fight you, and poke you down, and if you don't get picks on them, if you don't blow them up with Veigar, the Tristana will just get out-team fought. It's that simple. So the second game is Flashwolves versus CLG. Flashwolves starts off with the Azir ban, which is a very smart ban. Pobelter plays a pretty good Azir, and Azir's just an obnoxious champion with an extremely high win rate at Worlds. CLG bans Gangplank. Gangplank is a standard ban for top lane now, very strong champion. Typical, can go mid or top, good flex pick. Flashwolves bans the Elise. Elise is 100% picked or banned at Worlds, so that's standard. The Mordekaiser ban for Counterlogic Gaming against Flashwolves, that's also standard. Mordekaiser's obnoxious, no one wants to deal with it. The Flashwolves then bans Lulu. Pobelter or Zion Spartan can play Lulu. It's a flex pick. It's strong. That's banned. Has, again, an extremely high ban rate at Worlds. These are all just typical bans. Darius gets banned by Counterlogic Gaming. They don't want to deal with it. As a first pick from Flashwolves, Zion Spartan, I guess, doesn't have a good counter to it necessarily right now, especially with Lulu off the table. It's a little more difficult to kite. Flashwolves picks up the Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is strong jungler, not the best win rate at Worlds right now, decent pick rate and ban rate. But Karza is shown to be a very proficient Rek'Sai player, especially against the Ku Tigers earlier. Earlier, I forget which game this is. But either way, Karza showed to be a very proficient Rek'Sai player. It synergizes really well with Maple, who really enjoys playing roaming assassins, and the synergy between those two is really quite good. CLG looks to be responding with an Echo pick. That Echo pick could go in one of three positions. It could go as I said before, it could go in top, mid, or jungle. They pick up the Alistair for Aphromoo. Aphromoo has been a big Alistair player. Counterlogic Gaming's picking really safe. They're trying to counterpick their mid and top lanes right now. With the Echo pick, where the Echo pick could go anywhere, and the support pick is whatever. So Counterlogic Gaming's really just trying to play a safe pick ban phase. Flashwolves has to pick something, so they choose to pick their bot lane right now. They pick Jinx and Morgana. Now, if you haven't watched this game, go watch Sword Art's Morgana. His binding accuracy is absolutely disgusting. I haven't counted it, but I really want to go back and watch how many binds this man hits. He is a sniper. You would think it was a targeted ability. He is absolutely incredible. Morgana's a really good ban against, or a really good pick against Alistair and Echo. It can block all of the CC from either of those champions, especially because, you know, they don't do all that much damage. So I have no idea what I'm talking about. So Jinx will be completely safe from that. Counterlogic Gaming sees the Jinx ball comp coming in, and they pick Victor. Victor is a very good champion against death ball comps, because if you have a death ball and you run it to Victor, Victor's just gonna Chaos Storm and laser you, and suddenly you're all down to half health. It's actually a smart pick from Counterlogic Gaming. Doublelift goes back to the Tristana, but Doublelift got out-team fought by a Jinx earlier today, so I don't really understand why he's necessarily picking this Tristana. I understand that it's a late-game scaler, it's very strong, but with so many of these games, being won off of later game team fights and CLG failing in those positions, you would think he'd want either a more early game champion and less of a sieging champion, or he'd want a team fighting late game champion, something like an Ashe, something like something with more pick. You would think he'd want Tristana. Now, Flashwolves respond with a Malphite and a LeBlanc. Malphite is pretty good in the top lane. He's a bruiser. He's just utility. And Maple gets his LeBlanc. LeBlanc and Jinx is a very strong combination because all LeBlanc has to do is distort and use Sigil of Malice in, chunk someone to half health or less, depending on who she hits, and then Jinx follows up with Super Mega Death Rocket. With the Execute, it does an absurd amount of damage, Jinx gets a reset, and they clean up the team fight. With Malphite in position to just ult the backline, specifically Victor, Flashwolves has created a very potent team fight team. CLG, once again, they pick up the Lee Sin, and they've once again created a very problematic composition. Not a problematic composition necessarily, but a very difficult to execute composition. It's going to be very hard, once again, to get on the Jinx. They made it a little easier this time by putting Echo in the top lane and by putting Lee Sin on jungle for displacement, lockdown. It's not as bad, but they're still going to have an extremely challenging time locking down the Jinx, while Stake on Malphite just ults the backline, and while LeBlanc kills Victor. It's just Jinx is going to be very safe, and she's going to be team fighting and outputting tremendous amounts of damage. CLG just doesn't have a good team fighting composition ready for this type of composition coming from Flashwolves. For Jinx, CLG doesn't have a good counter to Jinx, honestly. They don't. Zion Spartan isn't playing, and not just Zion Spartan, Xmithy isn't playing the effective lockdown and engage champions that you need to be able to blow up a Jinx and win a team fight. Because if you can't blow up the Jinx, all you're stuck again with is fighting against a tank line with a Jinx behind it, with Maple using LeBlanc to just distort in, destroy people while the Jinx sits safely behind and gets resets, you're not going to win a team fight. And that is truly the death of CLG. CLG just can't out-team fight these teams with Jinx. Hey guys, so today we witnessed the disintegration of CLG. And honestly, I think it's because CLG just didn't have... They had the early game strategy down. They knew what they were going for. They wanted to siege turrets, but when it turned into a team fighting game, they got outdrafted. They got outdrafted by Jinx. They had no good way to get onto her that she couldn't see coming, that couldn't be peeled, and they just couldn't. They had no response to Jinx. Doublelift has played Jinx in the past. He didn't first pick it. They, I guess, didn't think it was first pick worthy. They thought Tristana was a more effective option, but honestly, Jinx was the death of CLG today. And it's unfortunate to see a team just get crushed by one pick like that, by picking themselves into a hole with very difficult to execute comps. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I have a Twitter now. I'll link it at the bottom in the video's description, and see you guys later.